Welcome,
Let's
everyone.
dive into
We're
this. Today we're
diving
looking
into-
at something a little different. We're going to be exploring a full-length Korean novel.
Yeah, novels, they give us a different window, don't they? Like a peek into the culture and the values and even the history of a place.
Yeah, totally. And this one, it's called No Tuan, which I think it translates to even now. Just the title itself has got me hooked, you know? Like there's this hint of something lasting, a love that just keeps going no matter what gets thrown at it.
Yeah, that resilience, that enduring spirit. It's a powerful theme, isn't it? Something we can all connect with on some level, I think.
Absolutely. And the story, it's a love story at its heart, but it's also got all these twists and turns that touch on like societal expectations, maybe even historical echoes. I'm really excited to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to unpack all of that for sure.
Yeah.
So the story starts with this young man, Caillou, Chilmin, who leaves his rural hometown and heads to Seoul. He's got big dreams, you know, ambition, that classic tale of moving to the big city to make it big.
Right, that rural to urban migration story, but with a very distinct Korean flavor, I'd imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And it's in this bustling city, Seoul, where Chilmin crosses paths with Seoul, Ji-hee, who becomes, well, the most important woman in his life.
And I bet their connection, it's like instant, right? But their journey together, I'm guessing, is anything but smooth sailing.
You got it. I mean, the novel wastes no time throwing obstacles in their way. Chilmin, he gets swept up in this intense, high-pressure Korean corporate culture. Long hours, you know, demanding bosses, the constant fear of downsizing and restructuring. It's a lot.
Oh, I bet. And it really makes you think, doesn't it, about how these economic forces, they have a ripple effect on people's lives, their relationships. Chilmin's experience, it reflects like a larger reality for so many Koreans during this time of intense economic change.
For sure. It's not just about individual ambition, right? It's about how personal lives are intertwined with these massive societal shifts. And for Chilmin, it adds this whole other layer of complication to his relationship with Ji-hee, which is just starting to blossom.
Yeah, and we find out pretty early on that Ji-hee, she's carrying her own weight, her own complicated family history.
Right. She was raised by her father and stepmother after her mother left. And she also carries this social stigma, this label of being a Seol.
For our listeners who might not be familiar, could you explain what that term means?
Sure. So Seol refers to children born from concubines.
Yeah.
It's this concept rooted in Korea's Confucian past, where social hierarchy was like super rigid. And even in modern Korean society, the shadow of that stigma can still linger.
So the novel's really diving into these layers of societal pressure, prejudice, and how they impact Ji-hee's sense of self.
Exactly. And amidst all of this, their budding relationship is already facing societal disapproval. You have these two individuals, Chilmin and Ji-hee, each battling their own personal demons while trying to navigate this connection that's already pushing against cultural norms.
It sets the stage for a really powerful love story, doesn't it? This idea of fighting against the odds. And I imagine that's where the title, even now, takes on this whole new meaning, right?
Absolutely. It becomes a promise between them, a whisper that their love will endure, even when faced with separation, with hardship. It's this beautiful thread of hope woven throughout the story.
And the novel, it doesn't just tell their story through dialogue, right? It uses these vivid descriptions of places, locations that carry historical and symbolic weight.
You know, you're right. We see their relationship kind of blossoming during these trips they take to the Namhan River and the ancient city of Gyeongju.
And each place holds a certain meaning, right? Like the Dumumyeori, where those two rivers meet, could be seen as foreshadowing, like a merging of destinies. And Gyeongju, with its ancient temples, they evoke a sense of history shaping the present.
I love that. It's like the novel is saying their love story, it's playing out on this grand stage of time and tradition. It adds this whole other dimension to their journey.
But it's not just about Chilmin and Ji-hee, right? We also get introduced to these other characters whose lives become intertwined with theirs. It's a whole tapestry of experiences that reflect like the complexities of Korean society.
Right, like Ji-suk, Ji-hee's older sister. Her story, it takes a pretty dark turn. She ends up in this unhappy marriage with a man obsessed with finding some mythical treasure island. And it leads him down this path of financial ruin, infidelity. It's really tragic.
Oh, wow. So Ji-suk's experience, it's like a stark contrast to Ji-hee's own romantic journey. It's almost a cautionary tale, right? About the dangers of unchecked ambition, of chasing these illusory dreams.
Yeah. It makes you think about where true happiness really lies. Is it about material wealth or is it about genuine connection, about self-discovery?
Right, and then you have Jong-chil, who is Cheon's childhood friend who pops up in Seoul with all these entrepreneurial ambitions of his own.
Oh, Jung-chil. He's a really interesting character. He sort of embodies that get-rich-quick mentality that was prevalent in Korea during its economic boom. And he draws Kyo-min into these risky ventures, and, well, things don't exactly go as planned.
So Jung-chil almost represents like the shadow side of Cheolmin's own ambition, a reminder that the pursuit of success can come at a steep price.
Exactly. He's a cautionary tale for sure. And then we have Eun-ju, Cheolmin's co-worker. She falls for a colleague but faces a lot of societal pressure, ends up heartbroken. Her story really highlights those unspoken rules, those taboos surrounding workplace relationships, a theme that I think resonates across cultures.
It reminds us that even as societies modernize, those traditional values, those expectations, they still have a powerful hold, don't they? They shape people's choices and their experiences.
Absolutely. But what's interesting is that Eun-ju finds solace, a kind of strength in this unexpected friendship with Ji-hee. And this bond between women, it becomes this recurring motif in the novel, highlighting how important these female support networks are in navigating societal pressures, in finding that sense of belonging.
So even in these early chapters, we have this intricate web of characters and their relationships, each dealing with these unique challenges. It's not just a love story, it's a reflection of Korean society in this time of profound change. It's about how individual aspirations clash with traditional values, and that search for happiness, it takes on so many forms.
Right. And just when you think you have a grasp on the story, the novel throws this curveball. Ji-hee makes a decision that changes everything. Driven by heartbreak and a yearning for something more, she sets off on this journey to Hainan Island in China.
Hainan Island, that's specific, isn't it? Like, there's got to be a reason for that choice. It's not just a random escape. This place has to have its own history, its own symbolism.
Oh, you're definitely right. Hainan Island is this fascinating mix. It's a tropical paradise, a place people think of for escape, for relaxation, but it's also this rapidly developing economic hub, a symbol of China's growing global influence.
So it's a place where this allure of the exotic meets the realities of economic ambition. It really makes you think about Ji-hee's motivations, doesn't it? Like, is she seeking spiritual solace, or is it a chance to reinvent herself in this dynamic environment?
And that's a question the novel explores in the chapters to come.
Yeah.
As she sets off on this new adventure, it leaves us wondering, what impact will her absence have on those she leaves behind, especially Cheolmin?
And let's not forget Ju-suk, trying to rebuild her life after her husband's betrayal, and Eun-ju forging her own path. Their stories, they're ready for some serious developments too.
You're right. There's so much more to unpack, to analyze. We've just scratched the surface. But for now, I think we've laid the groundwork for a captivating journey into the world of You Even Now.
Yeah, it's a powerful start, and I'm eager to see where it takes us.
So we're back, diving deeper into Yukel Even Now. Last time, we left Ji-hee on her journey to Hainan Island, looking for peace, maybe a fresh start, while Cheolmin's back in Seoul, facing his own struggles.
Almost like, their lives are mirroring those currents at the Dumulmiori. They're flowing in different directions, but still connected at the source.
That's a really neat way to put it. And in this next section of the book, both Cheolmin and Ji-hee are navigating the whole messiness of life and love, with their paths going separate ways.
So Ji-hee in Hainan, it's a place full of contrasts, right? This tropical paradise, but also a rapidly developing economic center. What does the novel tell us about her time there?
It shows her time in Hainan as a time of looking inward, of growth. First she wanted to escape the heartache, but then she gets drawn into this missionary work, really dedicating herself to helping people in need.
Like, she's turning her pain into something with meaning, finding a purpose outside of just romance. But we also know Hainan's got its own complications, right?
Yeah, for sure. The novel introduces a new character, Organ, Kim, the pastor who runs the mission in Hainan. He becomes a source of support for Ji-hee, but also a source of, turmoil.
Oh, so even in this idyllic setting, those human relationships, they always bring their own drama. It's like a theme almost. No matter where we go, we can't escape those messy human hearts, can we?
No, we can't. And Kim, he's got his own secret, medical condition, and that adds another layer of tension between him and Ji-hee.
Okay, now I'm really curious to hear more about that. But before we get into it, let's check back in with Cheolmin. Last we heard, he was in Seoul, dealing with the fallout of his business failures, feeling pretty disillusioned.
The novel doesn't shy away from the consequences of his ambition. He goes through financial setbacks, his marriage falls apart, and there's this deep sense of loss as he thinks about the choices he's made.
Like he's going through his own kind of exile, running parallel to Jihee's journey, but within Seoul, a place that was familiar but now feels different.
That's a really insightful observation. And just like Jihee finding comfort in helping others, Cheolmin also finds himself drawn to acts of kindness, of support.
Really? Tell me more about this change in him. It sounds like he's shifting away from that self-serving ambition towards something more selfless.
We see a gradual transformation. He becomes a source of strength for Jihee's sister, Jisuk, who's now dealing with her divorce, and for Eunjo, who's starting her own business.
So even though he's going through his own tough time, he finds a way to be there for others. Makes you wonder, is it a real change in him or just a way to cope with his failures?
That's the question the novel wants us to grapple with. Is his generosity a way to redeem himself? Or is it a way to avoid facing his shortcomings?
And Jisuk, after her husband's betrayal, where does her story go? Does the novel give us any hope for her?
Her story takes a turn, but in a good way. She reconnects with an old flame, Sang-shul, and finds happiness in this new relationship.
So even after her marriage crumbled, she finds love again, a chance to rebuild. It's a good reminder that even in the darkest times, there's always a chance for renewal.
And speaking of renewal, Yunju's story is all about resilience and that entrepreneurial drive. With Jihee's support, she launches her own franchise and becomes really successful.
It's so inspiring to see these women overcoming these obstacles, finding their own agency in a society that often tries to put them in a box, you know?
Yeah, their journeys are these powerful contrasts to the more traditional paths that Korean society often expects of women.
But while these individual stories are playing out, there's still that underlying tension between Shilomin and Jil, right? That unspoken yearning.
Absolutely. The novel keeps their connection alive through letters, phone calls, like this thread of hope, even though they're building separate lives.
But the distance and time passing, they create their own hurdles. How does the novel show their feelings changing? Is their love fading? Or is it becoming something deeper, more lasting?
That's the core of the novel's exploration of Yo, isn't it? Their love is tested by separation, by past hurts, and current complications.
And just when it seems their paths are splitting for good, something unexpected happens. Jisuk, who thought she couldn't have kids, gets pregnant.
Yeah, it's a twist that brings Jisuk a lot of joy, but also reveals something shocking about her ex-husband. Turns out he was the one who couldn't have children. Another layer of betrayal on top of everything else.
Wow, that's a huge revelation. It's like the novel is bringing together these themes of justice, redemption, and those unpredictable turns that life takes.
Exactly. And for Jihee, this news about her sister just adds to her already complicated emotional state.
She's dealing with her own heartache, her relationship with Kim and Hanan, and now the joy and challenges of supporting her sister through this unexpected pregnancy. That's a lot to handle.
It is. And as if that wasn't enough, there's another twist. Cheolmin, after a lot of soul-searching, decides to go back to Canada, try and fix things with his wife and kids.
Wait, he leaves Jihee behind after everything. I gotta admit, I feel for her. That's gotta sting.
It's a decision that reflects the novel's nuanced look at love and sacrifice. Cheolmin realizes his responsibilities to his family, and he feels like he has to try and save his marriage, even if it means giving up his own happiness.
So it's not that he doesn't love Jihee, it's that he recognizes his obligations, wants to make things right for his past mistakes. Such a difficult choice, showing how family and personal fulfillment can pull us in different directions.
And with this decision, the novel kind of questions what a traditional happy ending even means. It's not a simple resolution. It's this messy, bittersweet reality reflecting how complex human relationships really are.
But there's still that big question. What about Cheolmin and Jihee? Is their story truly over? Or is there some hope that their paths might cross again?
That question is at the heart of the final part of our deep dive. As we move into the last chapters of EO, Even Now, we're left to think about the lasting nature of their love and the possibility of them finding each other again, even if it seems unlikely.
I'm hooked. Can't wait to see how the novel ties these storylines together and what ultimately happens with Cheolmin and Jihee's Even Now love. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Kweo, Even Now. Last time we left off, Cheolmin made that tough decision to head back to Canada, leaving Jihee in Seoul and their story, well, kind of hanging in the balance.
It was a real turning point, wasn't it? Showed how heavy responsibility can be and whether love can really overcome time and distance.
Yeah, it did. So as we get to the last chapters, I'm really curious to see what happens with their lives. Does the novel give us any hints about how they deal with being apart?
Well, the focus in these last chapters shifts more to Keelman's life in Canada. We see him struggling to adjust to this new place, reconnect with his kids who are teenagers now, and trying to rebuild that relationship with his wife.
Wow, he's a long way from the ambitious, driven Chielmin we met at the start. Seems like everything that happened in Seoul and with Ji-hee has made him rethink what's really important.
Exactly. There's this humility to him now. He's not chasing after those big dreams of success anymore. It's more about being there for his family, supporting what his kids want to do, and trying to fix his marriage.
But even as he builds this new life, the novel hints at the sadness, like a part of him is still connected to Ji-hee and the life he left in Seoul.
Yeah, it does. The novel captures that emotional tug of war so well. Chielman might be finding some peace in Canada, but you get the sense that his heart's still split, like a part of him wants something more.
And Ji-hee, what about her? How's she doing living in that house Chielman secretly bought for her? It's got to be a constant reminder of him, of their unfinished story.
Ji-hee's journey in these final chapters is about this quiet strength. She throws herself into work, her relationship with her sister, supporting Uju, who's killing it as a businesswoman now.
It's interesting how the novel shows her strength, not as like a screw you to the past, but as an acceptance of where she is now. She's not bitter or full of regret. Instead, she's pouring energy into those around her, finding fulfillment in what she's doing.
Yeah, it speaks to the novel's message about finding strength in unexpected places, about how important community is, and the different ways love can show up. Her connection to Chielman might still hurt, but it doesn't define her.
And that's reflected in how she supports her sister, Jasuk, who's a new mom now, right?
Yeah, Jasuk's story is this beautiful contrast to some of the other relationships in the book. It's all about healing, finding happiness in family and motherhood.
And Yoonju's success, it adds this layer of hope, too. It's like the novel's saying that even when there's heartbreak and disappointment, life throws you these chances for growth, for finding happiness in new ways.
Definitely. And what's cool is how these stories of resilience and hope are tied in with Keelman's journey, too. He might be far away, but he stays connected to these women through letters and calls, celebrating their wins, being there for them.
It shows that relationships can last even when life pulls you apart. But I gotta ask, does the novel give any closure to Chielman and Ji-hee's story? Did they ever see each other again?
Well, in a big turn of events, Chielman decides to go back to Korea.
He goes back. After all this time, what makes him do that?
It's a mix of things, really. He wants to reconnect with his roots, confront those feelings for Ji-hee that are still there, maybe find some closure to that chapter of his life that he never really closed.
So it's not just about romance, it's about figuring himself out, how the past still affects him now.
Right. And when they meet again, it's intense, full of emotions. They talk about the years that have gone by, the choices they've made, the love that's still there, but also how their lives have changed.
Sounds bittersweet, like they realize that some love stories don't fit into neat boxes, that time and distance can create a gap that's hard to close.
Yeah, and in a final act of, I think, love and understanding, Chielman tells Ji-hee he's given her ownership of the house. It's like a symbol of his love, wanting her to be happy, even if it's not with him.
It's a powerful moment that really sums up the novel's message about love, sacrifice, and how complicated human relationships can be. But is that the end for them?
Well, as Chielman is about to leave Korea again, Ji-hee sends him a message that captures the heart of their even now love. She tells him she'll wait, that their love can be rekindled, that their story isn't over, even if it has to continue in another lifetime.
It's an ending that leaves you wanting more, doesn't it? Filled with longing and the hint of a future reunion, even if it's uncertain.
And that's the beauty of this novel. It doesn't give you easy answers or simple endings. Instead, it leaves you with hope and the understanding that some love stories unfold over a lifetime, chapters being written and rewritten as we deal with life's twists and turns and the power of connection.
Even now is a story that stays with you. It's about the lasting impact of love, the complexities of relationships, and how resilient the human spirit can be.
It really is. And as you think about this novel, I'd like you to consider, what are those enduring loves in your own life? How have they shaped you?
That's a beautiful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Issei Even Now. We hope it's given you a new perspective on Korean culture, relationships, and the power of stories.